Ministry.
I vote to move that this House do now adjourn.
The question is that this House do now adjourn. Paul Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I rise tonight to raise an issue with the Government that has been a long-standing concern of my constituents living in Hedge End, Botley, West End and Fair Oak, and that is the lack of accessibility at Hedge End train station in my constituency. It's good to see my right honourable friend, the member for Romsey and Southampton North, and my honourable friend and constituency neighbour, the member for Meon Valley in here, who I know have constituents that use this railway station. And before I go into detail about the particular circumstances concerning Hedge End, I just want to give the Minister some of the context around why I have called for this action and why I've called for this debate in particular. Over the last 20 years, the population of Eastleigh Borough has grown by 15%, which is almost double the rate of the national average. We have also seen significant increases in house building, particularly in Hedge End, which sadly has not been matched with the new infrastructure needed to serve the growing population. This has been exacerbated by the failure of the local council, who have been unable or unwilling to put in place a suitable local plan to guide and shape development in a sustainable way. The volume of new housing in Hedge End has been substantial. Between 2001 and 2011, new homes delivered from Dowds Farm, a major strategic development in Hedge End North, increased the population in that ward on the Borough Council by 33.6% in 10 years. And between 2011 and now, major new housing developments delivered a further 450 new homes, with more housing delivered as part of Dowds Farm, but also at King's Copse Road and St John's Road, nearby to the very excellent Southern Parishes Conservative Club. And looking ahead, Eastleigh Borough Council have either granted planning permission or allocated for a further 738 new homes to be built in Hedge End within the next 10 years. In simple terms, Madam Deputy Speaker, we have had the housing growth and we've had the population increases, and we will continue to have more housing growth, but we have not got the infrastructure that should go hand in hand with this level of past, present and planned development. Now, honourable members may perhaps have been to my constituency to campaign in one or both of the by-elections that have happened in my constituency in the last 25 years. And while I think it's safe to say that I hope that there are no further by-elections in my constituency, they would have travelled into my constituency, either arriving at Southampton Airport Parkway or Eastleigh Town Centre. And at the next election, during my hopeful successful re-election campaign, I want to give colleagues the opportunity to come into and see the vibrant offer that Hedge End Town offers them in a Hedge End train station with greater accessible transport. But towns and villages like Hedge End, Botley, Bursledon and Hamble are served by small stations lacking the required facilities needed to serve growing settlements. And many of my constituents choose to live in Hedge End because of the railway connections to London, the great sense of community, and the excellent local schools such as Wilden School and Bury Wood, to name but two. This also explains why Hedge End Station is well used, with over 522,000 entries and exits in this last year alone, and that's up from 506,000 in 2017. However, for some people in my constituency, entering the station is not as easy as exiting the station, and that is what I hope the Minister will be able to assist with today. Parents with disabled children, disabled adults, and also parents with pushchairs or prams are unable to use Hedge End Station to travel because there are no lifts, wheelchair or pushchair accessible facilities at the station. Any travellers or commuter with mobility issues are left in the unacceptable situation of being able to take the train to London from Hedge End, but are forced to have to alight at either Southampton Airport, Eastleigh, Fareham or other stations towards Portsmouth for their return journey. I certainly will.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way and congratulate him on securing this incredibly important debate. Does he agree with me that all too often it is our disabled constituents who get the roughest deal when it comes to public transport, particularly our rail network, and we simply have to do better to make sure that they have the same access to get around the country as we do?
I thank my right honourable friend for Romsey and Southampton North, and she's absolutely correct. Many constituents have written to me talking about how they have disabled children or they have disabilities themselves, and at the moment they cannot travel to London, and the only way, which I'll come on to later, the only way in which they can get to London and have that mobility is by having a journey in a car or by paying for a cab to go down the M27 and go into Eastleigh Town Centre or Southampton. And she is completely correct. Members across the House will have stations where this is a problem, and we need to get better at providing that solution for people with disabilities so that they can travel as good as people like that are able-bodied themselves. And that's why I say to the Minister that the situation in Hedge End simply cannot be, or surely cannot be, allowed to continue. Southampton Airport and Eastleigh, which are the closest stations to Hedge End, are still over 5 miles away from Hedge End by car or taxi, and naturally come with additional costs and inconvenience. The lack of access to this station means that people from the southern half of my constituency are forced to travel to Southampton Airport Parkway, which has an annual usage of 1.7 million passengers, or Eastleigh, which has an annual usage of 1.6 million passengers, by driving through the towns of Fair Oak, Horton Heath or Bishopstoke, or down the M27. And this creates another problem. Our towns and villages such as Eastleigh, Bishopstoke and Fair Oak are struggling with the lack of investment in road infrastructure caused by the overdevelopment provided by housing. This means that the road around Eastleigh and Southampton Airport Station are often blocked in rush hour and inaccessible too. And there is a wider point here, Madam Deputy Speaker, in that the government, quite rightly, and I completely support them, argues that we need greener and more sustainable forms of travel, and I agree. But the current facilities at Hedge End Station do not facilitate this, and in many respects actively discourage it. This is, of course, bad for them, bad for the environment, and bad for our local transport networks. Madam Deputy Speaker, the Minister will know that levelling up is not just about solving a geographical problem between North and South. It is about equal opportunity and better outcomes for those who are disadvantaged. I firmly believe that with the installation of either a lift or wheelchair-accessible facilities at Hedge End Station, that we can achieve exactly the sort of results that are at the heart of this government's agenda. Of course.
My honourable friend, sorry, give way.
Of course.
He's making an excellent speech about a very important topic, which is equally important to constituencies which neighbour his constituency too. I think, as he said before, it's a very fast-growing station. I think 138% growth since 2000, so it's important to my constituents. Has he considered that it's possible to get on the Fareham-bound platform along a footpath, a very muddy footpath at the moment, and has he looked at whether we can develop that side of the station to enable people with disabilities to be able to access the Fareham-bound trains?
I thank my honourable friend for her intervention, and she makes a very good point. She knows the station as well as I do, and her constituents use it. And there are options there to improve the footbridge from that side of the train station. But what I would say, and I share her sentiments and share her aspirations, and think that that is an adequate step for the short term, but for the number of people that will use this station, Madam Deputy Speaker, in the longer term, with the rise of the increase in population that are moving into the constituency, I think we need to go further, and that's why I've called this debate tonight, and I thank her for her intervention. But as I say to the Minister, the installation of either a lift or wheelchair accessible facilities at Hedge End Station, we can achieve the sort of results that are at the heart of this government's agenda. We can give disabled people the opportunity to easily travel for work and enjoyment. We can make better life for families and parents with young children. We can improve our environment by getting more cars off the road, and we can make sustainable travel alternatives a sensible, viable option for my constituents and the wider community. With all these benefits, I hope the Minister will reflect on the strong case for upgrading the facilities at Hedge End Station and make this station a priority for future funding allocations. I know the Minister will acknowledge that I have written to him and lobbied him before in the tea room and in other locations, and I will continue to lobby him to get the funding that we need. But if he would like to make our life in Eastleigh just a little bit easier, I look forward to him writing to me, or he could just give me and my constituents the good news that he's allocating the funding right now. Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Minister Chris Heaton-Harris.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And may I start by congratulating the Honourable Member for Eastleigh in securing this debate and giving colleagues across the House the opportunity to discuss the important subject of accessibility to the railway network, and it's especially in his constituency at Hedge End Station. I'd like to thank him actually for the very positive engagement that we have had on this matter, and I promise him that his polite and persistent manner will achieve a lot for his constituents in this place, and the way he goes about his business is completely professional and does him great credit.